A frommer Katz was hat lieber zu hören teurer wie Rappen Mais. A pious cat who preferred to listen to the Torah rather than catch mice. De Bob is gewann a ganze Woche vernommen in Kirch mit der hübsch Häusgesinnt und mit ganz Kol, is sie noch mehr beschäftigt gewesen auf Shabbosim und Yomim Tovim. If grandmother was occupied all week in the kitchen with her enormous household and with the entire community, she was even more involved on the days before Shabbos and holidays. Shabbos hat sich bei der Boben nicht angehäuben Freitag, nor am Tag früher, Donnerstag Nachmittag. Shabbos didn't start for her on Friday, but a day before that, afternoon on Thursday. Gleich nach Warms hat Ethel Neche, die Ebeke-Dienst, reingeschleppt in Kirch, die 2 Säck Mehl, mit seinen Tommet gestanden Gerät in Haus. Right after lunch, Ethel Nechel, who was always the servant woman, she would bring into the kitchen 2 sacks of flour, which were always standing ready in the house. Und eingeschotten 2 große Multers mit Mehl. She would fill 2 enormous kneading bowls with flour. Eine aufbacken Challes und Kirchlich, and the zweite aufbacken Bräut auf a ganze Woche. One of them to bake challah and cooked goods or cookies. The second one to bake bread for the entire week. Die Baba hat genommen das Mehl in der Hand, gerieben es zwischen die Finger, geschmeckt dazu, versucht es und gehabt die ständige Teine, als der Mehlhändler narrt sie. Als das Mehl seins ist nicht so schön und süß und gut wie Mehl fleckt einmal sein. Grandma would take the flour in her hands. She would rub it between her fingers. She would smell it at the same time, and she would search through it. And she always had the same complaint, that the flour seller was defrauding her, that the flour, his flour, was not as good and sweet and good as it used to be. Als sie es fertig geworden damit, hat sie abgeschätzt das Mehl in die Multers. When she had finished with that, she measured out, that's, I think, what abgeschätzt has to mean here. She measured out the flour in the bowls. Gekommen zum Beschluss, als man nutzt zu viel Mehl a Woche. She came to the decision that one's using too much flour every week. Und kedei einzusparen in der Hotzoa, hat sie angenommen a Handmehl und reingeschickt es zurück in Sacke rein mit asa Energia. And in order to reduce, to save a little bit of the cost, she would take 1 handful of flour and she would toss it back into the sack mit asa Energie, with such force, wie sie wollte damit eingespart a Vermögen, as if by that she would save a fortune. Danach hat sie zurück ausgenommen a halbe Hand Mehl von Sack, and then she would take a half handful back out of the sack. Zurückgeschotten es in der Multer. She would pour it back into the bowl, rein, und a Zog getan, and she would say, no, Mela, Michael, soll sein Lekovet Shabbos. Well, anyhow, forgive me, but it's in honor of Shabbos. Ethel Neche hat verkaschert die Arbel und genommen Gissen Wasser in Mehl rein. Ethel Neche rolled up her sleeves, and she would start to pour water into the flour. Die Baba hat ihr geholfen, Röstchinnen und viele sagen, als das Gebäck soll geraten. Grandmother helped her. Now, what is Röstchinnen?
I couldn't find.
Röstchinnen is to let the bread rise.
Yeah, I thought it was more like kneading it, because they just poured the water in, and then they needed to knead the dough to get it
That
right.
makes sense. You'd expect the verb knetten. I've got in my dictionary that it's preparing batter for frying or letting bread rise. And the word roshchene is leaven. So she maybe helped put in yeast, perhaps. And she would make a prayer that the cooked goods should come out well. A ganzen Donnerstag bei Nacht is die Kirche gewesen voll mit Tag, Reiches von Heaven. All Thursday night, the kitchen was full of dough and the fragrances of yeast. Der Backoven hat geflackert. The baking oven was flaming. Atel Neche hat gearbeitet meisim mit die Kotcheres und Lopetes. Atel Neche, the serving woman, she did wonders with the Kotcheres and Lopetes. Those usually go together. These are Kotcheres, the pokers, removing the rods for removing items from the oven, and the paddles for putting things into the oven. Die Baba hat ihr zugeholfen and grandmother helped her. Es ist gar nicht gewesen kein Schier, so die viele Bräuten, Chales, Plätzlich, Mondkichlich, Kommisbräutlich, Eierkichlich, und allerlei andere Gebäcksen. There was just no end to the numbers of breads, challahs, crackers, poppy cookies. Kummis is doesn't come to mind at the moment. It's a
poppy seed cakes.
Well, it's not no, that's one. Kummis is
different seed. It's a different.
Kummisbräut is hardtack or dry biscuit. So hardtack, egg cookies, and all sorts of other cooked goods. Was man hat angebacken in der Babes Stube, which they were baking in grandmother's house. Die Baba vielleicht gehen schlafen inmitten der Nacht. Grandmother would go to sleep in the middle of the night. Tag is sie schon von deswegen aufgestanden. Nonetheless, she got up before dawn. Gegangen in Weiberschul davenen. She would go to the women's section of the shul to daven. Und zurückkommendig hat sie genommen zu Greten die Freitag-dicke Suda von Gedichts und Hesa Bilkes. And coming back, she began to prepare the feast for Friday night of Gedichts. What's Gedichts?
I found it as a stew.
Okay, yeah, Gedichts, stewed meat. And hot, now Bilkes is most likely Bulkes, warm rolls.
Yeah.
Ottos Michael is abgehitten geworden jeden Freitag via Gesetz. This particular treat was preserved, was carefully guarded every Friday, as if it were a rule. Und es ist gewesen ein Kluggesetz. That was actually a clever rule. Warum sei das eingedämpfte Fleisch und sei die frische Bilkes, sind gewesen tam geneden, because both this stewed meat and also these fresh rolls, they had the taste of heaven. Avada habe ich euch gewollt, das Stückel von Viskrobetk. Of course, I also wanted to have a little bit of the Viskrobek. What's that?
The end of the bread.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It can also mean the youngest child, but I guess it's the end of the bread. Yeah.
There's a word, paskrebets, that my family used to use, and that was the dough that was left in the bowl that was collected, and something was made with that excess dough that was left in the bowl.
Oh, okay.
So we used to call it a paskrebets, but here it's a viskrabek.
Viskrobek, yeah, good. But I, of course, wanted to have a bit of that. A bilke, was is gemacht geworden von letzten Tag. This was a roll that was made out of the last amount of the dough. Was man kratzt euch von der Mutter, which you would scrape out of the bowl. Und was hat in meine Augen gehabt dem siebenten Gein, and which, as far as I was concerned, was the best of all. Aber die Bobbe hat mir dem Viskrobek nicht gewollt geben, but grandmother didn't want to give me this Viskrobek, weil hat gehört zu Chaim Wasserträger, because it belonged to Chaim, the water porter, was vielleicht jeden Tag in der Woche anfüllen mit Wasser das große Fass in Vorderhaus, who would fill every week the big barrel that was in the entryway. Ot der Chaim Wasserträger is given a jeder Tam, was hat a ganze Woche von Fahrtag bis spät in Ovent getrogen Wasser for Balabostas. This Chaim water porter, he was a simple person, and the entire week, from before day until late at night, he would be carrying water for the women of the households. Aber hat keinmal nicht gewusst, wie viel Meereswasser hat getragen. But he would never know how many containers of water he had carried, und wie viel es kommt ihm for der Woche, and how much he was due for that week's labor. Yankov.
Okay. Chaim, wie viel Fässer Wasser hast du umgegossen in die Woche? So she asked Hoti Boba him gefragt. So the Boba asked him, how many barrels of water have you poured in during this week? Geben dik im amatona dem Viskrobek, as she gave him as a gift this Viskrobek, this bit of dough that had been collected and baked. Ich weiß nicht, Rebbetzin, hat der Jid gesagt, behalten die Bilke in Bosom. I don't know, Rebbetzin. He answered, the man answered, hiding the roll in his
Chest pocket?
Yeah, in his chest pocket, right. Die Bobbe hat gefragt bei dem Wasserträgers Weib, ob sie ein nicht größere Chachome von ihr Mann hat euch nicht gewusst. So the grandmother asked the water carrier's wife, but she, who was not very much cleverer than her husband, she also didn't know. Die Bobbe hat gemussert der Chaimige. The grandmother scolded the water carrier's wife. Steitsch, wie gibt es nicht der Weib Achtung auf ihr Manns Verdienst? What do you mean? How is it that a wife will not look after her husband's earnings? Man kann doch ihm opnarren. People can cheat him. Was seine Plätze kosten mich denn Geld, hat die Idene geantwortet. So, what are you saying? do his shoulders cost me money? The woman answered, mit een narrisch gelächter, with a silly kind of laugh. Alsens, trok soll zijn ontrogen nog een paar visser. So he's carrying water in any event. So he'll carry another few barrels. God, ich hab dem Tamawatten id lieb gehad, für sein ewigen Schmeichelen. Nevertheless, I loved this simple Jew very much.
The chutch is although.
Okay, although I loved this simple Jew very much, but because of his constant smiling, hab ich ihm aber nicht gekannt Meuchel sein das, was hat bei mir zugeräubt dem Viskrobik jeden Freitag. I still couldn't forgive him for the fact that he stole away from me this dough, last bit of dough each Friday. Aber Leunung der Fall seinen Gewinn die Kommissbräutlich, was die Bobbe hat mir gegeben für ein Zubeiß, noch ein Gedichts. So, aber Leunung.
Reward?
Yeah, okay. A reward was the fact that the Bobber gave me, I think, Kommissbräutlich are like rusks.
Yeah, I've got it written as hardtack.
Okay, but rusks are usually hard.
I don't even know what rusks are.
It's a baked, like
It's
a bit
like-
of, yeah.
Sorry, it's like a crust from bread. It's like if you took a crust off and let it sit for a couple of days until it got really, really stale. That's what a rusk is. It really is like a very hard crust of bread.
Not what I understand as a rusk, but anyway. So which the Bobber gave me as a snack after eating the stew. Gleich noch ein Geschmacken anbeißen, hat die Bobbe genommen, räumen die Stub lekovet Shabbos. So immediately after this very tasty snack, the granny began to clean the house in honor of Shabbos.
Yeah, unbison can be lunch.
Unbeißen, okay. Okay. Kodem kol is gewinn a Welt mit Silber in dem Bobbes Almer. Silberne Leichter und Goppel und Löffel. So, first of all, there was a large amount of silver in the Bobbes, in the grandmother's cupboard. Silver candlesticks and cutlery and spoons und Salzmischlen and salt shakers und besomim bixlach and spice holders. Das Salz,
The Salzmestel, it's a salt cellar. And they didn't use shakers. They most likely used cellars, salt cellars. I saw that also in Russia. Never saw a salt shaker there.
What is a salt cellar exactly?
A salt cellar is a little ceramic device, like a cup, but usually rectangular in cross section, in which salt is placed and which people take out, usually by using a special knife for that purpose. They would take out a little bit and then spread it on their food by shaking the knife.
Oh,
okay. Das Salz is gescheuert und geputzt geworden. All of this was cleaned and shone. Etel Necher hat gewaschen die Tischen und Bänke, geputzt, gereinigt. And Ethel Netta washed the tables and the benches. She scrubbed and she cleaned. Jedes Mal aufs Nei hat man gemusst führen Milchome mit der Katz, was hat gehabt a Teva zu sitzen auf a Stuhl neben seitens Kisse Rabbones in Beis-Din-Stub. Each time, from once again, they had to do battle with the cat, which had a nature to sit on the chair next to the Zayda's rabbinic chair in the courtroom. Die Katz hat bei kein Schumöfen nicht gewollt abtreten von Seidens Stub. The cat, under no circumstances, was ready to move away from the Zayda's room. Die Baba hat gewollt halten die Katz in Kich. Granny wanted to keep the cat in the kitchen. Weil erstens hat sie gewollt, weil erstens hat sie gewollt haben für a Schäumer für die Mais. Because first of all, she wanted to have her as a guard against the mice. Zweitens, darf a Katz bichlal nicht sein in kein Beis-Din-Stub, nor in a kich. And secondly, a cat should never be in a courtroom, but rather in the kitchen. Aber die Katz hat bei kein Fall nicht gewollt verlassen die Beis-Din-Stub. But the cat didn't want, under any circumstances, to leave the courtroom. A moderne Katz gewesen. It was a strange cat. Dacht sich, als die Kich hat ihr gedarf besser schmecken. Warum dort ist gewinn an ewiger Michia, an ewiger Michia von hinnersche Kischkelech. So it would, one would imagine that the kitchen would have smelt much better, because there was a constant source of nourishment of chicken innards, von Fleisch und Milch und Fett und allerlei andere gute Sachen. The smell of meat and milk and fat and all sorts of other good things. In der Beis-Din-Stub ist gewinn bloß Forim und Teire und Din-Teires. Als Sachen, in welche a Katz darf leuten Seichel HaYosher kein groß Interesse nicht haben. in the courtroom, all there were books and laws and the entire legal decisions, all things which a cat doesn't need according to common sense, that a cat doesn't, according to common sense, have a great interest in. Aber sie hat bei keinem Fall nicht gewollt reinschmecken in der Kirche. But she, under no circumstances, was she willing to go into the kitchen. Nur gesessen neben Seiden, gedrimmelt auf einen Stuhl und zugehört sich zu Teure und Jüdischkeit. But she sat next to the Zayda. She snoozed in on the chair and listened to the law and Yiddishkeit and Jewish matters. Nicht anders, nor in der Katz is a Gilgularein, hat die Bobbe geteinet und mit den Ellenbeugen getrieben die eingesparte Katz von der Stuhl, welche man hat gedacht, abwaschen le Kovet Shabbos. It's nothing, it can only be that the cat has is a Gilgularein.
Transmigrated spirit.
Yeah, but it's
A lost soul.
yeah.
No?
Yeah, but it doesn't really fit into the context here. It's perhaps a spirit has got into the cat. The Bobber claimed, and with her elbow, she tried to push the stubborn cat out of the chair, which she wanted to wash in honor of Shabbos. Okay, Susan?
Die Bobbe hat noch gehabt, a besonderen Wiedergefühl zu der Katz. The grandma also had another resentment towards the cat, weil der Seide hat mehr zärtlich herausgewiesen der Katz, because Seide was more affectionate to the cat wie than to her, sein Weib, his wife. Lahavdil, God forbid the comparison. Der Seide hat die Katz emes nicht ungerührt. Zeta, in truth, the Zeta never touched the cat, weil es ist nicht a gleiche Sach für a Yid unzurühren, aber Shefanish. Well, it's not an easy thing for a Jew to touch another creature. Aber hat sie gelost sitzen neben sein Stuhl, but he let her sit by his stool, und nicht gelost keinem wegtreiben sie, and not let anybody drive her out. Dagegen, on the contrary, hat die Bobbe keinmal nicht gehabt, die Schie zu sitzen neben Seidens Tisch. On the contrary, Grandma never had the honor of being able to sit next to the Zeta's table. A chutz eenmaal a jaar, only once a year, beim Seder, at the time of the Seder. In an iberige Tag van jaar, in the iberige Tag van jaar, and the rest of the days of the year, nicht in der Wochen, not on during the week, nicht a viel Shabbos, not even on Shabbos, Yontif or Yontif, pflegt die Baba sitzen bei der Sude zusammen mit die Seiden. Did she sit mealtime together with the Zayden? Blois zu Kiddush pflegt sie reinkommen in Zayden's Stuhl. Only when it was time for Kiddush, to make the blessing on the wine, she came into the Zayda's room, zusammen mit die Töchter und Einiglach, together with the daughters and the grandchildren. Ich hab die Shabbosem und Erev Shabbosem in Bilgerei sehr lieb gehabt. I very much loved the Shabbos days and the Shabbos and the Erev Shabbos days, Erev Shabbos evenings in Bilgerai's Zeta, in Zeta's house. In Ot der früher altjüdische Stadt hat sich der heilige Tag gefehlt von Freitag früh on. Oh. In that religious old Yiddish town, the holy day was felt, was experienced from Friday early on. So the Shabbos started to be felt early on Friday. Auf Mark haben Mark Sitzerkes freilich ausgerufen sehr Fisch. In the marketplace, the saleswomen happily hawked their fish that they sold. Grinsen und Frucht, also vegetables and fruit. Der Bäder hat gepoikt as Simen, as jeden sollen sich zueilen mit gehen in Merchatzerein. The bath attendant banged on his drum that Jews should hurry up and go to the bathhouse. The Balabatim, the householders, pflegen vorbeigehen dem Zayden's house. The other householders would go by the Zayda's house, walk by. Jeder mit sein Päckel Wäsch, each one with his package of his wash, his laundry. Urme Jiden pflegen gleich von Schwitzbud verhalten sich Leben Yechiel, Leres, Kreml. So that's poor Jews used to go right out of the bath and stop near Yechiel, Leres, Yechiel, the teacher's store, und ausschmieren sich die Stiefel mit Tron, and they would smear their boots with cod liver oil. So I looked it up. B'koved Shabbos, in honor of Shabbos. Von ot dem Tron pflegen die Koljevas werden bleu. Because of that cod liver oil, the boots became blue. Weiber und Mädels haben sich geeilt. Women and girls rushed by. gejuckt mit einer reinführen dem Shabbos in Häuser, in a hurry to carry out, to get there for Shabbos, and to carry out what they needed in Shabbos in the house. A Stück vor Lichtzinden hat schon der Shames sich bewiesen mit sein hilzenem Hammer. A stick. Sometime before candle lighting, the Shamus showed himself with his wooden hammer or wooden mallet, mit welchen hat umgeklappt, which he would bang in Yiddische Häuser, bang on the doors, I guess, in Jewish houses, rufendig mit Anigin, calling out with a tune. Jeden, Weiber, Zeit bald Licht zu zünden. Jews, wives, it's time to light the candles. Ot der Hammer flaked, unworfen, a Moire auf Balabustus. This hammer sound used to throw fear on the women of the house. Freer wie in alle andere Häuser ist der Shabbos hereingeführt geworden in Zayden's Haus. Before all the other houses and the Shabbos was started off, in Zayden's house, it was started off before all the other houses. Die Baba hat sich umgetun in a seiden Kleid. The grandmother dressed herself in a silk dress, was hat shimmeriert mit alle Kalieren, which shimmered with all colors. Ot is es gewesen gel, bald green, bald blue. Started out being yellow, then became blue. Well, then green, then blue, bald wieder gel, and then went back to being yellow, und so weiter und weiter, and so on and on. Sie hat euch ausgetun das wochendicke Tichel. She took off her weekday kerchief und ungetun an etlassen Kopke, and she put on a satin bonnet, was is gewesen bedeckt mit ganzen Gurten und Karschen, which was decorated with a whole garden of cherries, Weinperlach, currants, Weintrauben, grapes, und allerlei andere Pears, and all kinds of other fruits, verputzt mit kollierte Stängelig, and dressed up with colorful stems, und Schleifelach and bows. Von ihre Euren haben sich gebumbelt lange Eurenlach. From her ears there dangled long earrings. Gesetzte mit Diamanten, that decorated with a lot of diamonds. Sie hat euch ungetun auf dem Hals etliche schnierlich Perl, and she put around her neck a few strings of pearls, was man hat gesucht, als sie seinen Wert auf Armegen, which everybody said they were worth a fortune. A hutz allerlei Spielkes, in addition to all kinds of clips und Brasletten and bracelets und andere Ziering and other jewelry, was sie hat gehabt von ihrer Chasana, that she had from the time of her wedding. Sie hat umgestellt a Sach silberne Leichter mit Licht, and she had a lot of silver candle holders I guess, with
She set out silver candlesticks.
candlesticks that were lighted. Welche sie hat gebencht mit sheer brachas, and she blessed them with endless brachas und techines and benedictions. Der Seide is, I think that's supposed to be is, der Seide is zurückgekommen von Merchatz. The Zayda came back from the bathhouse, a verreutelter, glowing red, an ausgezwungener, a scrubbed, mit Payas was seinen Gewein, doppelt lang von Wasser, with Payas that were twice as long as usual, because they were, because of the water put on them. Sein weiß Hemd hat gehabt breite Arbel. His white shirt had broad sleeves. Der breite Kolner hat sich nicht verkneppelt. And the broad collar was not buttoned up, nor gewein verbunden mit bendlach, but it was bound up with strings. Seine Socken bis die Knie, his knee-length stockings, seinen Gewähne so weiß were so white, wie das Hemd, like his shirt. Besonders weiß der Schwarzkeit von der Schabesdicker Atlasaner Kapotte. And the white with the darkness of his Shabbos-dicke satin kapotte und Streimel, and his streimel, the special hat. Shabbos hat gehalten in ein Zujugend in Stub und geeilt sich in Schulerein. Shabbos, he kept on muttering in the house. And he hurried to go to shul. The alte Shul, the old Shul, untergehalten mit Säulen, which was held together with columns, behandelt mit meschene Hängleuchter, and it was hanging on it were many bronze light fixtures, und Hesses. And I looked up, Hesses are zodiac signs. Is gewein hell von die viel Licht. It was yellow from the many lights.
A Hesse can also be a sconce.
Oh.
Which is a light.
Oh, no, wait, the zodiac, I made a note, and it's down later, the Mazalis of the zodiac signs. I'm sorry. The Hesse, it says sconces, that's right, where you put lights in? Yeah, my mistake. Okay. Handleuchter und Hesses. Okay, lamps and sconces. Is gewein hell von die viel Licht. It was yellow with all the light. Die offene Fenster in der Heich haben fegelig geflattert. Around the high windows, birds.
Open windows.
Birds fluttered. Ungesungen, they fluttered and they sang. The 12, and here it is, the 12 ausgemulte Mazolas, the 12 painted zodiac signs, mit a Blimel und statt a Mädel auf Mazel Besula. So with they put a flower instead of the virgin who would have been on the Goyish zodiac sign.
That's Virgo. The sign Virgo.
Right. The the Virgin Goddess there, haben feierlich herabgeguckt von die Wand. They looked out, burning from the walls.
Now, feierlich is joyously or in a celebratory manner.
What's the word?
Feierlich.
Feierlich, brightly, celebrating.
Yeah.
Herabgeguckt, for they looked out from the wall, vibrantly looked out from the walls, wie die Leben von über dem Oren Kodesh, like the lions from the Holy Ark. And maybe somebody else will read that.
All right, I'll continue then.
Genug.
Couple
Can I,
chazen.
can I ask a question?
Sure.
Sorry, what is the relationship between the zodiac and all these religious folks here? Because that doesn't. It seems very, irreligious to me. In Jewish theology.
Well, it's a form of decoration in the shawl.
Yeah.
The mazolis, the word mazel tov, really means under a good constellation. So astrology was around, although the Rambam didn't like it much.
Right. Thank you.
You have many old synagogues with decorations of the zodiac signs. It's always surprising.
Yeah.
Ancient synagogues, yes.
Yeah, the old ones with mosaics, yes, often, yeah. Koppel Chazen, als erwachsener Jid, hat ganze Woche hat gemacht Streck, hat zusammen mit seinen Bochrim, die Meshorerim, Heich Mekabel Shabbos gewen. Koppel the Chazen, he was a tall person, and all week he was a string maker, but on Shabbos now, together with his lads, the singing choir, they would loudly greet the Shabbos. Jeder Wort seins hat sich abgeschlagen mit der Sach Wiederkeules in die Wand von der alter Schol. Each of his words resounded with a lot of echoes from the walls of the old Schol. Der gepackte Reulem hat untergehabt seine Wörter mit der Raschigkeit von Beimer in Wald Beis Sturm. The packed congregation grabbed hold of his words with a rustling, as if it were of trees in the forest during a storm. Ich weiß nicht, wie weit Medagen es ist gewesen, der zerwachsene Reb Koppel. I don't know how much of a singer this tall fellow Reb Koppel was. Was hat ganze Woche gemacht Strick, who was a string maker all week. Aber ich gedenk noch bis heint das süße Wiedercall von sein Lechuner Anana. But I still remember to this day the sweet echo of his psalm Lechuner Anana, which is the beginning of Kabbalah Shabbos. Arboim shana akut bador v'oimar im am toele vavhem v'hem lo yada'ut rachai. That's from the end of that psalm. 40 years I was angry with that generation, and I said, they are a wandering people, and they do not know my ways. Hat feierlich gedavend Reb Koppel, solemnly davend Reb Koppel. Und alle Jiden, ausgewaschene, ausgezwungene, zerflammte von Shabbos, haben untergehabt dem Shir Lashem Shir Chadash. And all of the Jews, freshly washed and scrubbed and flaming from the Shabbos, for the Shabbos, they grabbed his Shir Lashem Shir Chadash, which is the beginning of the next psalm. Sing to God a new song. Mit das Abrenn, as die Vent, und die Seilen, und die Meschene Hänglichter, und die ausgemollene Mazoles, und die Leben, auf den Oren Kodesh haben gezittert von Geräusch. They grabbed that psalm with such force that they would be singing along, that the walls and the columns and the brass Hänglichter, the chandeliers, and the drawn constellations, and the lions drawn pictured on the Oren Kodesh, they all tremble with the sound. Hecher von alle hat gedavent mein Zede, and my grandfather was davening louder than everyone. Chotche misnaged und a Schweiger, even though he was a misnaged, a non-chassid, and by nature silent, is der Yid a rein in a gewaltiger Hisleifes beim Davenen. He would enter into a forceful enthusiasm as he was davening. Besonders Freitag zu nachts, especially Friday night. Hat gedavent mit brenn. He davened with force, mit hanoah, with pleasure. Wie Stück gesund wollt ihm zugekommen von die Tfilis, as if he had acquired a little bit of extra health from these prayers. Von der Schol, von der fromme Rede, davenendike Yidden, and from the Shol and from the pious congregation of davening Jews, wemens pastach is gewen, whose shepherd he was. Die Shol balabatim, meistens arme Jiden, Balmalachas, Balmenigidim und Chassidim haben meistens gedavent in sehr Chassidenstiebelach, haben geguckt mit Stolz auf sehr Rav. The householders who went to that shul, mostly poor folk, working people, because the rich ones and the Chassidim, they would mostly daven in their own Chassidim prayer rooms. They looked with pride at their rabbi, was gekemel nicht davenen ergets anders, who would never go daven anywhere else, nor davent nusach Ashkenaz in shul, in Zer shul. But he would daven with the Ashkenazic nusach, not the one that the Hasidim use, which is nusach Sfardi. In shul, in their shul, und sich noch früher zerlost in sehr Freitagnachtliche Tfilis. And he would even more piously let himself loose in their Friday night prayers. Lebendig Gott, for dem heiligen Tag Shabbos, praising God for the holy day of Shabbos, mit welchen hat Mesache gewen sein Volk Israel, with which God had made his people Israel worthy. Noch in Davnen hat Koppel Chazen gemacht Kiddush auf den Balemer. Where's the accent on that? Balemer, most likely.
Valemer is a reading table.
Reading desk. Yeah, I was just wondering where the accent goes there. After davening, Koppel Chazen would make Kiddush at the reading desk for ganz Kochel, for the entire community. Und Shmuel Shames hat gegeben die Jüdelech zu trinken Wein von größten silbernen Kiddushbecher. And Shmuel the Shames, he would give the boys for drinking the wine from the big silver Kiddush cup. Die Engler haben sich schier nicht zerrissen beim Chappen a bissel Wein von Kiddush. And the boys almost ripped themselves to shreds, grabbing at a little bit of wine from the Kiddush. Versteht sich, als ich bin gewesen bei dem Seidenschames der Erste zu versuchen von Becher. Now, it goes without saying that I was the very first to grab, to taste from the Becher, from Zayda's, from grandfather's Shamas. Nachdem ist der Zayda durchgegangen, die Schol, und alle Jiden haben ihm mit Simcha entgegen getragen dem Gut Shabbos. And afterwards, grandfather would walk the length of the shul, and all of the congregation would greet him with joy and give him a good Shabbos. In Bezdin Stub is showing der Tisch gewen gekräht. In the Bezdin room, the table was already set. Die viel Licht in die silberne Lichter haben gefinkelt. The many candles in the silver candle holders were glittering. Der Blitzlamp hat hell beleuchten die gelbe Blätter auf die tapezierte Wand. The now a Blitzlamp, some kind of a lamp. Is that a kerosene lamp? I don't know.
It's a mantle lamp.
A mantle lamp. Okay.
Yeah.
It brightly lit the yellow leaves on the tapestried walls. Der Wein
The wallpapered wall.
Wallpaper, that's good.
Yeah.
Ois tapezierte, wallpaper, thank you. More reasonable than tapestry, I expect. Der Wein in dem gläsernem Karaffin, die Tischtechlech auf die Chales, die silberne Löffel und Messers, die Bechers und Becherlech, als hat gefinkelt in die Shabbosdike Licht. The wine in the glass carafe, the tablecloth on the covering, the cloth covering on the challahs, the silver spoons and knives, the wine cups and the little ones, everything glittered in this Shabbosdik light. Finklendicker von als seinen Gewinn der Bobbes Euringlich und Spilkes und Perl and alle andere Zieren. More glittering than everything else was grandmother's earrings and pins and pearls and all the other adornments, was haben geblitzt mit alle Feiern and Koleren, which were shining forth with all sorts of fire and color. Der Seide hat gemacht Kiddisch und gegeben zu trinken von Becher der Bobben und alle übrige Weiber von Stub, bis etwa der Dienst. Grandfather made Kiddish, and then he gave for drinking from that wine cup, first to grandmother and to the other women of the house, all the way down to Ethel, the Dienst, the servant woman. Danach habe ich ihm zugetragen die schwere kupferne Schepp zu waschen die Hände. And then I brought over the heavy copper Shep is something to draw water with. I guess it's a
Basin.
Maybe it's a basin here. Yeah, to wash the hands.
Isn't it the cup that they use? Well,
that's usually called a kendall, which is diminutive of Khan. I'm just looking up to see if I can find in my dictionary Shep by itself. It's a ladle. Yeah, I think it's a ladle here, or something like it, but it could be like a Kendall. Vor der Zeit zwischen Kiddush und Machen Hamoitzi hat die Baba durchgeführt a stille Pantomime. Between the time of making Kiddush and making Hamotzi, grandmother carried out a silent pantomime. Guckendig auf die geflochtene Keulitschen, looking at the braided breads. A koilich is a twisted, an egg twisted bread, which is traditional for challah. Hat sie gewunken zu die Weiber herum und mit alle Evrim ausgewiesen ihr Simcha, wenn die Challahs seinen gerotten. Looking at these koiliches, at these breads, she would wink at the women around, and with all of her limbs, she would show her joy when the challahs were well baked. Und ihr Zar, wenn die Challahs seinen nicht geraten, and her disappointment if the challahs were not, did not meet the standard. Ich hab keinmal nicht verstanden, der Bobbes Agmes Nefesh über die nicht gerottene Challahs. I never understood my grandmother's feelings of disappointment, her Agmes Nefesh, her
Aggravation.
yeah, that's good, for the not well turned out challahs. Verkehrt, ich hab gar gefühlt a besonderen Tam in schwere, nicht gerottene challahs. On the contrary, I felt a specific tastiness in these heavy, not well risen challahs. Aber die Baba hat sich davon stark das Herz abgegessen. But grandmother, because of that, she would eat her heart out. Zum Glück hat das getroffen selten. Luckily, that very seldom happened. Und die Baba hat gequollen von die gerottene Keulitschen. And grandma was quelling because of these well-risen breads. Challahs. Wie nur der Seide hat gemacht die Brache über dem größten Keulitsch und eingeteilt Moizis, der Boben und die übrige Weiber besettelt nach der Dienst. As soon as Zeta had finished the bracha over the big challah, and he had passed around pieces for Baba and the other women, all the way to Ethel, Becha, the Dienst. Also haben alle Weiber gemusst verlassen dem Sedenstub. At that point, all the women had to leave Zeta's room und reingehen essen in Kitchen. They had to go eat in the kitchen. Sie haben bloß reingetragen Essen fahren Zeden. All they did was bring food in for Zeta, mir, mein Geschwisterkind Elia, for Zeta, for me, for my cousin Elia, and for the übrige Orchen and the remaining guests. Was der Zeta fleck tomid haben bei sich an Tisch, whom Zeta used to almost always have at the table. Ataket salib the Orchim haben die Weiber nicht getort sitzen beim Tisch. It was because of these guests that the women were not allowed to sit at the table. Der Zeta hat stark abgehielt. Als fremde Mannsbillen sollen sich nicht gefinnen bei ein Tisch zusammen mit fremde Weiber. Grandfather was very careful to make sure that men who were not of the family should not be found at the same table with women that they were not related to. Die Babes gewann äußer sich von Verdruss. Grandmother was besides herself with a disappointment, with annoyance. Was soll die Bettler darf sie und ihre Töchter und einiglich essen in Kich? Because of beggars, she and her daughters and her grandchildren have to eat in the kitchen via Dienst, as if they were servants. Es hat ihr schon nicht so verdrossen, wenn der Zeta hat gehabt bekoverdicke Orchem. It didn't bother her so much when grandfather had honorable guests, via a Bechaber, a Yeshiva Bocher, a Magid, or a Yerushalmi, whether a writer, a lad from the yeshiva, a traveling preacher, or someone from Jerusalem. Weil sie hat verstanden, als sie bei solcher Leid megen the Kevis weggehen von Tisch. Because she understood that because of such people, it's reasonable for women to depart from the table. Voll mit Verdrosse sie gewesen, wenn sie hat gemusst weggehen von Tisch zu proste Kapzonen. But she was full of annoyance when she had to leave the table because of ordinary poor folk, Heisergeher, people who went from house to house looking for handouts. Was der Zeta flecht oft mitbringen von Schul, whom Zeta would often bring from Schul. Good.
Okay. Der Zeta hat gehabt a Teva, auszusuchen, die gemeinste zwischen die Bettler. So the Zeta it was very frequently, he would seek out the commonest among the beggars. Die ärgste versähnischen und Keilikes, was kein Balabos hat nicht he would seek out the worst versähnischen monsters and cripples which no householder wanted und nicht gehad kein Cheshek heimzunehmen, who didn't want to take home, gedei nicht zu versterren Weib und Kinder dem Shabbos. These people didn't want to take these ugly people and cripples home who would disturb their wives and children's Shabbos. Die Baba hat nicht gekannt gucken, wie ot die schmutzige, zerkoltene Heisergeier setzen sich weg beim Chlorentichter. So the Baba, she couldn't bear to see these dirty, unkempt beggars seating themselves down next to the clean tablecloth, nutzen die silberne Löffel und Messer, and using the silver spoons and knives, trinken von die silberne Becherlich, and drinking from the silver wine cups. Soll nicht sündigen mit die Rede, hat sie gemurmelt in Kirch. Das ganze hektisch habe ich in Stub. I shouldn't sin by saying these words, she mumbled in the kitchen. But whole poorhouse I have here in my house. Der Seide hat nicht gelost fallen kein krumm Wort auf die Kapzonim seine. The Seide didn't allow any bad word to be spoken about his beggars. Esst jeden hat untergegeben Cheshek. Lasst sich nicht beten. Eat, people, he would
Encourage them.
Encourage them. Don't have people ask you. Just you carry on. You take your whatever you want. Die Kapzonim hat viele nicht in Sinnen gehabt, sich zu losen beten. And these beggars didn't have it in mind to that people should actually ask them. Sie haben gerieben mit Azar Beholle, wie ausgehungerte Pferd bei Karette mit Haber. They wolfed down with such almost panic so quickly, like starving horses at a feeding trough of oats. Sie haben gepatscht mit die Lippen und gerieben mit die Zähnen. They smacked their lips and they scraped, they ground their teeth. Geklippischt beim Trinken, and they gulped when they drank. In als haben sie getrunken die Moitzes Challah, and in everything they dunked their pieces of challah. in der Fischjoich, in der Hinnerjoich, in Wein, in Grain, in der Fluimenjoich. So they dunked the challah in the fish gravy, in the chicken soup, in the wine, in the grain, the horseradish, and in the plum soup or juice. Zij hebben opgeruimd alle can't really make that out.
I think it's Koilichen.
Koilichen von Tisch. So they opgeruimd, they cleaned up all the, or they ate up all the koilichen, the challah from the table, the crumbs. Ausgenekt die tellers, and they tipped the dishes. Aufgeschart die Breckler von Tischtig und von eigener Berd, and they brushed the crumbs from the table and from their own beards. Mir fleckt schlugen zu der Gall von seiner schmutzige Hand. Mit welcher sie haben angenommen die Keulitschen von seiner reute Augen und schmattene Malbuschim und verschimmelte Reiches. So for me, Schlugen zu der
Schlugen zu
Gall.
der Gal means to nauseate.
Right, so it nauseated me. Their dirty hands nauseated me, with which they grabbed the koilichen, the challah. Their red eyes and their ragged clothing and the moldy smell that came from them. All of these things nauseated me. Es pflegen mir nicht bekommen der Bobbes Geschmacke Fisch. I didn't the Bobbes tasty fish it didn't seem nice to me. Die Joichen und Hinner und Zimmersen, all of these wonderful dishes seemed, it put me off, all of these bad smells and ragged clothing. Überhaupt fleckt mir vergehendem Appetit, especially I lost my appetite, wenn Teil von die Orchim pflegen nicht nutzen Messers von Tisch, when some of the visitors didn't use knives from the table, nor their eigene bettlerische Kneiperlich, but rather they used their own beggarish pocket knives, schmutzige und verrostete, mit welcher sie haben gerissen Sticker von Keulitschen. So they used these rusty, beggarish pocket knives with which they cut pieces of the Keulitsch, of the challah. Aber der Fahr ist mir zugekommen ein Stück gesund von seiner Vista Hawaiis und Brummereien und Reid und Meisters, was sie haben nicht aufgehört zu erzählen sich einer dem anderen. But at the same time, I got, I enjoyed, I got some enjoyment from their expressions and their grumbling and their talk and their tales, which they didn't stop telling one another, Die fantastische Meises und Passierungen haben sie gehabt zu erzählen, meistens von Wegen, Städt, Balabatim und Balabostas. And they had amazing, fantastic stories and experiences to tell. Stories about the way, the roads, the towns, the householders, and the housewives. Meistens haben sie geredet wegen die gute und schlechte Shabbosim. Mostly they spoke about the good and the bad Shabboses. Was sie haben in die Stadt, in welche sie gehen durch in Verlauf von einem Jahr von sehr bettlerischen Marschrouten. So they would tell about these towns through which they had passed during the course of a year on their bigger itinerary. I think maybe we should stop here.